Boy, has it been quite a busy 6 days for President Trump and his team between discussions about tax reform, meeting with the president of China, green-lighting that Tomahawk missile attack on a Syrian airbase, and putting North Korea on notice. It's left the American people with lots of questions. Maria Bartiromo sat down exclusively with President Trump at the White House in his first Business Network interview since the inauguration to answer those questions directly. Maria, you're in D.C., no shortage of topics, great get. What jumped out at you about the tone and the tenor?
Well, we talked about all of the above, Liz. We talked about all of the issues that you just brought up, from Syria to North Korea, China, and, of course, the economic priorities as well. Look, President Trump is coming off arguably his best week of his presidency with the success around Neil Gorsuch getting confirmed yesterday, and the swearing-in ceremony, as well as really broad, deep support for those missile strikes against Syria. We talked about the economic priorities, and what struck me was the idea that health care and tax reform are very much linked. A lot of people thought that, well, the health care failed, the House bill did not, make it, so maybe tax reform is in jeopardy, or maybe, tax reform is going to be right front and center the next issue. The truth is, he's still trying to get health care done, and he thinks he will get health care done. And as soon as he gets health care done, that's when he is going to move on to tax reform. He made no bones about it. He expects all of these things to get done in 2017. He's expecting tax reform to be later in the year, but he said he has to do the health care first because it's going to save close to $1 trillion. The Obamacare taxes in there raised in just a couple of taxes, raised $1 trillion. And that was going to help them going into the tax plan. So they are still counting on making tweaks, changing the health care Obamacare replacement plan to ensure that a bill does get to the floor and they can, in fact, pass it. But again, he said tax reform is happening. He talked a bit about the border tax. He said, you know what, I don't like the word border adjustment tax. That's not what it is. Let's call it an import tax. Let's call it reciprocal tax. So I got the feeling that there would be a revenue raise within that tax cut plan. Yes, he's going to cut taxes. Yes, he's going to focus on the corporate rate, as well as cutting taxes for most individuals. But there's also probably a piece in there that raises revenue, because he talked about the fact that there are some countries that charge the U.S. 100%. You look at China, you look at India. If Harley Davidson, for example, sells motorcycles in India or in China, they are faced with 100% tax. So he wants the U.S. to do the same thing. That's why he's calling it a reciprocal tax. He said that this is going to get done, but again, he has to do health care first. Listen.
So we're going to have a phenomenal tax reform, but I have to do health care first. I want to do it first to really do it right.
But do you have to do health care before tax reform?
Yes.
When I speak with business managers, they say tax reform is so much more impactful to moving the needle on economic growth.
They're
so why
all right, but because I'm saving a tremendous amount, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars we're saving on health care. So we're going to have a much better plan than Obamacare, which is failing. Even now, as I came in here, they're saying payments have to be made that weren't scheduled to be made on Obamacare. If you don't make them, it fails. I mean, it's just a mess. Obamacare is a total mess. So we're saving tremendous amounts of money on health care when we get this done. Number one, and most importantly, actually, we're going to have great health care, and all of that saving goes into the tax. If you don't do that, you can't put any of the savings into the tax cuts and the tax reform.
Have you moved off of this soft deadline that your team put in place of August to get this done? Are you looking at the later in the year?
I don't want to put deadlines. Health care is going to happen at some point. Now, if it doesn't happen fast enough, I'll start the taxes. But the tax reform and the tax cuts are better if I can do health care first.
The other thing he mentioned is the money overseas, Liz, and he talked about $5 trillion. We always say it's $2.5 trillion. He said, it was $2.5 trillion about 5 years ago. It's up to $5 trillion, and that money is going to be incentivized to come back to the U.S. And finally, Liz, as I toss it back to you, he gave me a great story. He gave me the backstory on how he told the president of China about the Syria strikes. They were having dessert. We're going to tell you the whole story tomorrow on Mornings with Maria, right here on the Fox Business Network, because it really is a funny story. The way he basically just unloaded on the president of China and said, oh, by the way, President Xi. It's
And then there's
classic.
this. More coffee, tea. Maria, great job. Thank you. But I think that is very telling where he said, I don't want to put deadlines on tax reform, whereas he said 9 weeks ago now, in 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have a beautiful tax plan. So listen, Maria gets it. Maria's full interview with President Trump tomorrow exclusively on Mornings with Maria. Please do not miss it. It's right here on Fox Business, not the other guys.